Dig.
Wait or not, even if he was ready to sign this afternoon, I mean, there's only one reason I would possibly consider bringing back Aaron Rodgers, and that was if I really wanted him to mentor Will Howard. But maybe some of that took place last year, or maybe that's just not Rodgers. You would know better than us. But that's it. Outside of that, I am not. Why bring him back? Because a better scenario is putting Will Howard in there, and maybe he's not the guy. You win 3 or 4 games, and then you've got a high draft pick in what's at least now thought to be a strong quarterback class next year. You bring back Rodgers. The divisions should be tougher. We expect Baltimore to bounce back. Cincinnati maybe bounces back. But let's say they win 9 games. At best, you're doing exactly what you did this year, which is get in the playoffs and get bounced in the first round. Like, I would – now, Greg, I'm not sold on Howard. I liked him at Ohio State. If I was Pittsburgh, and I haven't seen their name mentioned with this guy, I would try to go get Malik Willis. Like, that's who I would try to go get. I'm not so much Kyler. I mean, you could take a test on Kyler, but I would go get Willis. But I've seen Miami and Arizona mentioned with him more so than Pittsburgh.
So I don't think it would be a mistake, because I think this is clearly about Will Howard and his growth and his progression.
That's a lot of in a 6th round.
Right.
I totally understand. But when you listen to the press conference and you listen to Mike McCarthy speak, it's very targeted at the growth and the development of Will Howard, simply put. And it's one thing for him to have that experience with Aaron Rodgers, and I do think he's been better even with Zach Wilson and here in New York and all the young guys since Jordan Love. I just believe that right now, with Mike McCarthy taking over as your play caller, it's different having a different system, different plays, different verbiage, and seeing how that quarterback school works and how they work through things in the offseason versus Aaron Rodgers in almost mid-stride season, late offseason. You don't really know what you're going to get. You're just now getting to know him. Now you know him. You have a new play caller. You go through the quarterback school together. He gets all that educational tutelage. And then you see what you got from there. From a wins and losses perspective, I think it puts them right back in the position of where they were this year. And for a lot of Steeler fans, they're like, we don't want that. But for the organization, they're about winning.
If I'm Mike McCarthy and you're my boss, you're a member of the Rooney family, you sign me, and I ask you, what does success look like for me in year 1? In year 1, what do I need to do to have you come into my office and say, Mike McCarthy, you did a great job. That's exactly what we wanted. What is your answer to me?
Not have a losing record, right? That's where you're going with it.
Or develop
you think
our
that's
young
the
quarterbacks
Rooneys,
that
not
we
you.
already
No, that's
have.
not me. I was supposed to be the
you were
Rooneys there,
You're the
right?
Rooney, yeah.
Yeah. No, you were the first on this, but I took a lot away from the fact that the Steelers were fine with running it back with Tomlin.
Yeah.
That it seems like they might value and the head coach they picked, which was not a long-term growing pains, high upside as Mike McCarthy. They value a high floor rather than a high ceiling. Like, you know what I mean? That's what they value. I definitely think this would be a mistake. This is not how I think you should try to build a championship level team. I also think this. I'm focused on the weight piece of this. And I forgot to look this up for the show. I apologize. But Aaron Rodgers, like, we know his process in the offseason, what it once was, the darkness retreat and the date and the calendar when that took place. Aaron Rodgers should not need more time to figure out what he's doing than Travis Kelce.
Yeah, I'm in full agreement on that point. I don't believe this situation should drag out into this massive extended saga like we witnessed in previous years with Aaron Rodgers. At this stage, you either have a desire to be with the Steelers organization or you don't. You either want to team up with Mike McCarthy or you don't. It's really that straightforward. So, I completely concur with that perspective, especially when considering the broader context involving Will Howard and the narratives surrounding him. This brings me to a crucial point. When you bring Mike McCarthy on board, you're compensating him for his knowledge and judgment. That's the entire rationale behind hiring experienced coaches. If his professional assessment concludes that Will Howard is the future of the franchise and that bringing Aaron Rodgers into the fold would be beneficial for development and mentorship, then you need to back that vision. Now, I'm not claiming that this specific approach is definitely the correct one, but it represents a deliberate, considered, and executable strategy. It's a far cry from the alternative, which is just throwing things at the wall to see what sticks. You know the type. Let's try this. I don't know, maybe we bring Mason Rudolph back. How about we take a flyer on Mitch Trubisky? Or perhaps we can convince Aaron Rodgers to come here. Is he even available? I guess it's worth a shot, right? That kind of haphazard, random approach is exactly what leads to organizational chaos. Now, personally, I am a huge proponent of the Malik Willis idea. I absolutely love that concept as a potential solution. I'm not sure about the specifics, what it would cost to acquire him, what the Packers would want in return, or if he's even available, but the potential is incredibly intriguing. In the short term, it would inject immediate energy, but it could also very easily be a move with long-term ramifications. I genuinely believe Malik Willis has the talent to be the long-term answer under center for someone. However, if we're talking about immediate gratification, about what would make me, as a fan, feel the most optimistic heading into a new season, securing a player like Malik Willis would be incredibly exciting. There would be a palpable sense of, okay, we have a new head coach, we have a new quarterback, and there's a renewed sense of purpose and energy around here. Malik Willis brought a genuine spark to Green Bay. Even in high-pressure situations like games against the Chicago Bears or during the playoff run, you could see it. You could feel it. You'd come away thinking, this guy can actually play at this level. He brings an element of magic, a dynamism that's contagious. He's proven he can perform in adverse weather, in the cold. All of those boxes would be checked, and you'd feel a genuine sense of optimism. On the other hand, if the organization has genuine internal confidence in a quarterback they drafted, one they believe is actually a hidden gem, that's a different path. It's the same narrative you hear. Hey, nobody really knew how good Malik Willis was until he got his shot. Well, the same could be true for Will Howard. People just haven't seen what he can do. And this is precisely where my earlier point about trusting Mike McCarthy comes into play. You hired him to be the expert, the decision maker. You have to be willing to ask him, is this the guy? Is Will Howard the quarterback you believe in? Because if the answer is yes, then the path forward becomes clear. You have a young quarterback on a cost-controlled contract for years. You don't have to pay him any significant money. Then you can potentially bring in a veteran like Aaron Rodgers to serve as a bridge, to mentor him, to continue his development in a practice setting, and all the while, you're building towards a sustainable future. I don't think that's a terrible plan by any means. It's a strategy of delayed gratification, which is why I was making the distinction between short-term and long-term thinking earlier. Acquiring Malik Willis offers that immediate gratification, that feeling of, we're making concrete moves, we're getting our guy. Will Howard, by contrast, generates no such buzz. We haven't even seen him in a preseason game. I believe he was injured and spent a significant portion, if not most, of the season on injured reserve. So there's no highlight reel, no training camp heroics to draw upon. Compare that to another late-round or developmental quarterback like Tanner McKee with the Eagles. We saw him light it up in a preseason game, and even though it was just preseason, people took notice. They said, okay, there's something there. Then, he got playing time in a meaningless Week 18 game against the New York Giants with all the backups, and he performed well there too. So there was some tangible energy, some real-world NFL tape to get excited about. With Will Howard, there's zero external energy. There's no buzz. And yet, technically, all the potential could still be there. He was injured and on IR for a large chunk of the season, so we don't even know how much he's been practicing or developing. This is where it gets difficult for fans because your mind naturally drifts back to his college tape. But at a certain point, that becomes irrelevant. Once a player is in the NFL, the only thing that matters is how they look in an NFL setting. How are they handling NFL coaches? How are they performing against practice squad players, who are still significantly better than the average college athlete? The talent jump is immense. So, college production becomes meaningless to me at that stage. It does seem like there's an internal emphasis on Howard within the building, And I find that interesting. I genuinely do. But as an outsider, there's just not enough information to go on. That's the uncomfortable position for a fan. Sometimes you just have to defer. You have to accept that the people inside the building have more information than you do. You have to trust their process. However, that act of deference is even more uncomfortable for a Steelers fan right now because you're being asked to defer to Mike McCarthy. It's easy to defer to an Andy Reid, a Sean McVay, or a Kyle Shanahan. Those are coaches with established track records and a reservoir of trust from the fan base. Mike McCarthy doesn't have that trust built up, not just in the broader NFL landscape, but especially in Pittsburgh, where he's a brand new face. You have no idea what kind of decisions he's going to make. You have no prior history with him in that building. That being said, I have a feeling that this situation in Pittsburgh might be the most power and control he's ever had as a head coach. I don't know how much actual say he had in Green Bay towards the end. And we know for a fact he had virtually no power in Dallas. That's Jerry Jones's world, plain and simple. In Pittsburgh, it seems like he will have significantly more influence over the roster and the direction of the team. And I don't think that's a bad thing at all. Again, you're paying him for his expertise. That's the entire point of the hire. I know he wasn't the flashy, universally celebrated candidate, but he's something different. And sometimes, that's exactly what you need. You bring in a fresh set of eyes and say, we're paying you for your expertise, you make the calls, what's your vision, what do you think we should do? For me personally, I sleep easier at night knowing that the organization is taking that kind of swing. Even if it doesn't work out in the end, at least I feel like the people who are in the best position to make the best decisions are the ones actually making them. Now, you could argue that hiring McCarthy in the first place was a mistake, and that's a perfectly fair criticism. But that's a question you wrestle with in a few years if things go south. You don't hire Mike McCarthy and then immediately try to override his judgment or force a different philosophy upon him. You hire him, and then you ask him, what do you want to do? Do you want to go out and get a Malik Willis? How do you feel about Will Howard? What's the plan here? What's the story? That, to me, is how it should work. It's easy to say that management should make all the calls, but in reality, the coach's input is paramount, and it should be. They're the ones who have to win with these players. They're the ones who have to develop them. They have the best understanding of whether a quarterback has a translatable skill set or if they're already maxed out. They're not always right, of course. They're human. Sean McVay will swing and miss on evaluations. Kevin O'Connell will, Andy Reid will, Shanahan will. It happens. But ultimately, you have to ride with what Mike McCarthy wants. That's the foundational takeaway here. I know that's a tough pill to swallow for some Steelers fans given who he is as a coach and the fact that he's been with the organization for, 2 weeks? Maybe less. So I get the skepticism. I really do. But I'm genuinely interested to see how this plays out. Because let's be honest, a couple of years ago, or even last year, was there a real plan? It felt like they were just making it up as they went along. We're going to get Russell Wilson. We're going to get Justin Fields. We're going to start this guy for 6 weeks. Then we're going to switch to the other guy. There was no cohesive strategy. It was chaos. Right now, you need to feel like they actually have a plan. You need to believe that there's a method to the madness. And for the first time in a while, it seems like they might actually have one. Anyway, those are just my personal thoughts on the matter. I'd genuinely love to hear your perspective. What do you all think about the current state of the Pittsburgh Steelers? What direction should they go? Should they pursue Aaron Rodgers? Do they roll with Will Howard? Should they make a trade for Malik Willis? What about a guy like Mac Jones? What's the right move? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. So whether you're on board with my take or you think I'm completely off base, either way, let's get some discussions going. Let's have some debates, maybe get into a few friendly arguments, but ultimately, let's just have some fun with it. And please, if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. We're building something special here, an amazing community, and I would absolutely love to have you be a part of it. I want to create a space that we all feel genuinely connected to, something we're all excited to be a part of. I think we're well on our way to making that a reality. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really does help with visibility and, the algorithm. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.